Hey everybody, it's Melanie from Home Probe, the home inspection company, and I am so excited because I have Steve with me. And Steve, I'm going to have you introduce yourself in just a moment. But we are going to talk to you about pre-drywall inspections. So if you can't hear, I hope you will send me something in the chat and we will take care of it, but we are going to roll on out. So the way that this webinar will work, I'm sharing my screen. So you're going to be able to see the fun pictures that Steve and our other inspectors have taken on site. If you have questions about the way pre-drywall works, go ahead and put it in the chat and we will get to it at the end. So we'll make sure, or if you have questions about anything inspector land, Steve is your guy. So you can ask him now before you start talking to clients, and that is a win-win for everybody. So if you think about how busy you as real estate agents are and how many transactions you're in the midst of during a year, not very many of your buyers have the good fortune or want to build a house essentially from the ground up, or buy a house that's being built from the ground up. And so this is an area of new territory for most real estate agents. And so you don't understand very much about what happens in a pre-drywall inspection. And that's why we're talking about it today, because buyers who are lucky enough to buy a house before they put up the drywall have even more access to better information, and that house will be built better as a result. So we are going to talk about pre-drywall inspection. First, we'll introduce Steve. Steve, tell us who you are and how do we know you?
I'm Steve Sheriffs. I currently do inspections here for Home Probe. I've been doing that for a number of years. And I also train all the new inspectors. And my background is I have decades of renovation and framing experience.
Decades.
And I built my own house. So.
All right. Steve built his own house. I'd forgotten that. That's awesome. Yeah. So Steve has lived pre-drywall and actually then does pre-drywall as well. So today we're going to talk about what can we see and when can we see it. And we're going to focus a lot on the different types of things that come up in a pre-drywall inspection than come up on the final inspection, or some people call it the pre-close. Steve will go through all of that. So this is a room that we can see. Look how much more we can see in this same exact room before they put the drywall up. There's a lot of structure we can see. We can see the electrical wiring. If there were plumbing in this room, we would be able to see that. We can see ducts and vents and all types of things that we can't see once we get that drywall up. And so that is what we're talking about in the pre-drywall inspection. So today, these are the questions that I've asked Steve to cover in the presentation. How many inspections do you need if you are building a house from literally, if you just buy dirt and you build a house on it, how many inspections do you need? Why does our pre-drywall cost more? And I can talk about that a little bit from the office perspective, but Steve will talk about it from a technical perspective. And what do we typically find in a pre-drywall inspection? What I want to give you as real estate agents, the tools to know is how to talk to your client about this. I always say, I don't want anyone to get one more piece of information, to pay for one more piece of information than they want, but I want them to know about all the information that's available so they get to make those decisions themselves. I am 100% believer that buyers make their best decisions themselves once we expose them to the available types of information. And so that's what we'll talk about in pre-drywall so that you can go there. Steve, let's talk about the phases of inspection, and tell us about the traditional 3-phase and why we focus on 2 of them.
So traditionally, you would do either a foundation inspection, which we've done as soon as they dig out all the dirt and they dig up your foundation and they start either preparing or pouring your foundation walls. The problem with that inspection is someone has to be there on site the whole day that they're doing that and look at every process of that. It's a long time inspection. Not necessarily very exciting, not much to see. The foundation inspection is also covered by the municipal inspectors. They will actually be on site to look at that as well.
Okay.
Pre-drywall is a rough framing. It's done when most of the utilities are put into the home, the plumbing, piping, electricity, fireplaces, flues, all those things are put in, but drywall has not been put up. So we can actually see how they're installed, if the materials are correct, if it's installed correctly. And then the third would be the final, which is either done before your closing, or if it's a new home, often is an 11-month warranty inspection before the builder walks away at 12 months and says, hey, I'm not doing anything else for you.
Okay. So one thing, I was talking to Jeff yesterday, and he said that pre-drywall is supposed to be done when the house is totally dried in. I know you say sometimes it's not quite at that stage when the builder lets us in. Sometimes
Correct.
maybe the roof isn't quite finished.
Correct. We see it in different stages. Most of the time, the shingles are on the roof. Very rarely, but occasionally we see where the shingles are not installed, but paper has been put down, tar paper. But often the boots for the plumbing vents go through the roof are not put up yet. So we can see quite a bit of that, and it gives us ability to look through the attic spaces as well as from the upper spaces. We will start droning roofs as well.
Okay. And so there should be windows installed. So the house should be dried in.
Correct.
When we do that. And most of the time, the insulation should not be up because we can't see as much when there is insulation.
Correct.
Right. Okay. And then like Steve said, we see clients do one of two things. They choose a pre-closing inspection as that last stage where, like a traditional sale, although we're just usually a week, maybe 10 days before closing, right before you do the final walkthrough with the builder, is a great time to have that inspection done. Or some buyers choose to wait and live in the house for about 11 months. And then right before that warranty expires, will come in and do their written inspection. All right, let's talk about the difference between the pre-drywall and either the pre-closing or resale, or the inspections that most of us know about. So when we're at the stage of build, what's the difference between pre-drywall and final?
The biggest difference often is time. When we come in to do a pre-drywall inspection, they're not going to wait on us for 2 or 3 weeks to tell them what we found. We have to come up with a report quickly, has to be accurate, has to be validated, but then they're going to keep building. So when you find pre-drywall issues, they have to be fixed within generally 2 or 3 days before they put drywall up in the home. Where with a final inspection, if we find out something that's wrong, let's say with your air conditioner, well, nobody's building the air conditioner. So, if it takes a few days to get an HVAC technician out there, we have time to do those things. We don't have that level of time in a pre-drywall inspection.
Okay. And so when you say we, you really mean the realtor and the client, right? And the builder. And so it's a rush. So we're doing, a lot of times I'll see when people are booking pre-drywall, the builder will usually give you a range of dates that you can get it booked in. Just for your information, as real estate agents, we have, and Steve will get into this, a limited amount of inspectors that we allow to do pre-drywall because we require extra training, and we give it more time on our schedule because it requires extra work in the reporting stage. And so the sooner you get on our schedule, the more flexibility we have to move with the builder. It's really hard if the builder doesn't tell you till the day before. It's really hard for us to sometimes find the space. So get on the schedule sooner, and we can work with you and the builder on accommodating, maybe it rained, and so now they're not doing as much of the build as they think. But we know when we have new construction on our schedule that it's likely to change days. It just is easier for us to negotiate that by having it on the schedule than by trying to get it on there later. Let's talk about when you're on site. What's the difference between the two kinds of inspections?
The difference with a pre-drywall is more technical. And so we're looking for different things. They're both visual inspections. We're doing a regular home inspection. We're looking to see how things are installed behind in front of the drywall, what we can see, and those type of issues. With pre-drywall, we're looking at different things. How is the piping done? How is the piping supported? Is the electrical run correct? We actually trace the electrical wires through the house to make sure the circuits are in the right place. We look for any issues that will not be visible once the sheetrock is up. So anytime that you put 2 pieces of sheetrock on a wall, we can't see any more piping, electrical wiring, anything. So it has a more technical standard of things that we're looking for.
Think about that. Every wire is followed. And to make sure it's supported and it goes to the right place.
Right. So
clients will come to a pre-drywall. Is there a wrap-up session?
There's not.
Okay.
A pre-drywall is open-ended from the inspection standpoint. We go in, we do our evaluation, we take our pictures. Then the biggest time for us is going back and using the technical references to explain what we found and also tell the builder why he has to fix what we found, not just Steve's opinion, but here's the code references that say this is incorrect or this is a wrong material. So there's no real wrap up. It's best for us, the clients, if they want to show up, it's not very exciting. But if they want to show up at the first and give us whatever concerns they have, but there's really no wrap up until the report is finished.
Okay. And so that's one reason it's really great. We offer free technical advice for as long as you own that house. So once your client gets that report, because Steve won't know at the beginning of the inspection all the things that will show up on that report. Once they get that report, if they have questions or the builder has questions, then you have access to the technical expertise of the inspector. So we covered the benefit of time. Let's talk about the basis, the difference between installation and performance.
So when we do a regular home inspection, we're looking at how are the units in the homes performing? How is the electrical system performing? How is the HVAC system performing? So we're testing those things through our home inspection. During a pre-drywall inspection, none of those things are actually working. They're installed, but the electricity is not connected to the home. The HVAC is not connected, it's not running. We don't test any performance. We actually test to see if the installation is correct and if the materials are correct.
Okay, which sounds like why it's so great to have both, because sometimes you can tell by performance that there's an installation issue, right? Because it's not performing correctly, but maybe sometimes you can't.
Correct.
Okay. So I'll go over cost. Our cost for pre-drywall, there are no extra inspections that we recommend with pre-drywall. It is just the pre-drywall because there isn't anything to perform yet. And so our cost is roughly $600 to $900. It's based on square footage. But that gives your client a pretty good range. And then we take $100 off of their second inspection, the base inspection fee, when they work with us for both inspections. We will also, to the best of our ability, give them the same inspector so that the same person has done both inspections. That second inspection, I think a good price range to give your clients for any resale or pre-close inspection is about $1,000 to $1,500. And that will cover your base inspection. It covers radon testing, which we definitely recommend in a new construction because nobody's done a radon test before. So that's a health and safety thing. And then we also recommend thermal imaging on new construction, because the installation might look right visually, but just as Steve said, sometimes by performing something, we can tell that something has gone wrong. Thermal imaging looks for hidden leaks before they would hit a finished surface. And because that house hasn't been a working house for very long, those leaks wouldn't have had time to hit a finished surface. So sometimes we do find thermal issues in thermal imaging on new construction. And so that's a value to the client. All right, let's talk about what does the state require out of the person doing these two different inspections? Is there any difference?
Yes, in Georgia, the state requires nothing.
Which is so funny to me
Billy
still.
Bob's cousin can wander out tomorrow and do a home inspection.
All right.
But in South Carolina, the state does require that they be licensed with the state.
Okay, but that license, you can do pre-drywall, you can do pre-close, you can do anything you want with that license, essentially. Correct. Okay. And the client experience we already talked about. Usually for pre-drywall, if your client wants to come, they need to come at the beginning, and really we're just there to answer questions and about generally the build and for them to highlight areas of concerns. So we make sure we address them. For a pre-close inspection, it's way better if your client does not come for the whole thing and they come at the end, and we can go over a wrap up with them. If they do come for the whole thing, can you handle them, Steve?
Absolutely.
Steve's trained. All right. So we talked about the state requirements, which are very little. Let's talk about Home Probe's requirements to be able to do this. What do we require our inspectors to do?
So our first new inspectors, the first thing we're looking for is they have to become an ASHI certified inspector. The state of Georgia does not require that. Home Probe requires that.
Okay. And what do you have to do to get that?
To get that, you have to go through a full book training. It's a 10-week training that we provide for them through ASHI. And then they have to perform 250 inspections, and it's on their own, but they're supervised. Their reports are looked over. Sometimes there's field audits. We know what's happening. And once they've accomplished that, then they become an ASHI certified inspector. Now, those inspectors are not allowed to do pre-drywall. To do pre-drywall, Home Probe requires, not the state of Georgia, but Home Probe requires that any inspector that we send out to do a pre-drywall for you is also an ICC combination inspector. The ICC is the International Code Council. They provide all the documentation and oversight and certifications for inspections internationally. And so Any municipal inspector that comes out to look at your home to do the HVAC inspection or the plumbing inspection has to be ICC certified. So all of our pre-drywall inspectors also have to hold all 4 residential certifications: building, plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. It's the exact same criteria as a municipal inspector. In addition, for ASHI pre-drywall certification to be used in a Home Pro pre-drywall, we require that our inspectors have at least 1,000 home inspections under their belt or prior municipal inspections. So anyone that we send out is well trained, is well certified, is well schooled, and well experienced.
All right, you have to be in the comma club to be able to do pre-drywall. So let's talk a little bit about the sources that we work with for our pre-drywall information.
All right, so we use the same sources that the municipal inspectors will use. It's the same language that your builders will understand and respect. And so when we come back to our office after the pre-drywall physical inspection, we've taken our pictures, we've walked to the home, we've inspected everything that's there. Then we start going through and looking at the issues, and then we cite from technical sources that are accepted within the industry, the 2020 National Electrical Code, for instance, the 2021 International Residential Code. And now we're not only telling the builder, hey, there's an issue, we're telling the building why there's an issue, what the certification board says about the issue, and what they need to do to correct the issue.
So what if, well, maybe I understand code varies based on municipalities. Does the IRC, is it a standard code?
It is a standard code, and some municipalities will exceed that or change that. We don't always know that. And if the builder comes back and says, hey, the city of so-and-so does not require that we do that, then we have to abide by that. Okay. But what we do use the standard to make our observation.
Okay, so we base that off of IRC, and then the buyer and the builder get to decide based on the municipality, what pieces of that they're going to accept. All right, what else do we use?
Well, sometimes there's also beyond code, there's manufacturer specifications. And so if we need to, we'll dig deeper. We will find the answer. We'll go to the Brick Industry Association, the Engineered Wood Association, et cetera, and look up their standards. If we can't find it in the code, we'll find an answer for you.
All right. Did y'all even know there is such a thing as the Brick Industry Association? So lots of fun stuff. All right. We follow the ASHI standards of practice, and tell us more about those.
So ASHI, which is the American Society of Home Inspectors, provides standards of practice for regular home inspections. They also provide standards for other types of inspections, and in this case for drywall, pre-drywall. And they tell us what is the minimum standard, what outlines that we must inspect, what outlines we must describe, and what we are not required to do. And if we can't inspect or describe it, what we need to do as far as placing a limitation, saying we could not do this because it wasn't accessible or it wasn't safe or whatever that was.
Okay, so there's a different set of standards for pre-drywall, but the idea behind the ASHI standards is certain things, it helps identify what our scope of work is. And so a lot of buyers have in their head that an inspector just finds, quote unquote, everything wrong with the house. But I mean, I've lived in my house 10 years and I still don't know everything wrong with that house. So ASHI formalizes our scope of work so we can predict and rely on the report to know what things would be identified and what things are outside of that scope.
Correct.
All right, so let's talk about why a pre-drywall inspection is important, because we're going to do that performance-based one later anyway. So why do we want to pay $600 to $900 extra for pre-drywall?
Because there are many issues that cannot be seen once drywall is put up. They can be major issues down the road within months or years. You're going to see some pictures later, but we find things that would absolutely not be visible after the drywall is put up on the home.
Okay, and they wouldn't show up in the performance because it hasn't been enough time for them to do their damage. All right, why else?
It's easier to fix at this stage. You go to the builder and said, hey, the inspector found ABC. He said this, and the builder looks at it and says he's right, and they can fix it before pre-draw. It's easy to do. It's on his dime. They take care of it.
And because the builder is excited to get the drywall up and get this house moving, those repairs, from what we hear word on the street, is that those repairs happen a little bit faster and go a little bit more smoothly because construction is waiting, not just a closing. I hear I hear in the industry that builders actually appreciate this because it's like a second look at their sub. Like they don't want something to go wrong later. They want to be a good quality builder.
It is. And most of the time we go out, the builders are accessible to us and helpful to us. So it's good.
Okay. But a lot of times people are like, well, my builder has a warranty, so maybe I don't need any of these inspections. Why would I still want a pre-drywall?
Because when you hit your 11th month before the builder's going to walk away at the 12th month, you cannot see what we can see at pre-drywall. And it could be a situation where it's not every situation, but it may be that you might have a pre-drywall inspection afterwards when something arises. And you rip off the pre-drywall anyway. So.
You rip off the drywall, a post drywall, a post. One other thing is if you think about moving in and how much, Wendy from our office just bought a new construction last year, and she was in a hotel for a couple of weeks waiting for, her old house had closed and her new house waiting to get in. And you think about the demands of a house on you, having things go wrong when you first move in, you're now on the low priority list of the builder because you've closed and you're living there. And so even if some of these things would be available earlier, Jeff was telling me the other day, if you've got sewage leaking through your dining room ceiling on Thanksgiving, you're not like, well, great, we have a builder warranty on this. So it also saves the hassle factor of having to live in the house while it's not working. Let's talk about, this is a great example of something we wouldn't probably see for years.
Yeah, this picture was actually taken by one of our inspectors at a home just within the last few weeks. So there's a beam that's sitting on this wall and there's no support underneath that beam. That beam is built up with 4 different boards. There should be at least 4 different studs beneath that beam.
Right here?
Yes, supporting it. And you can actually see that it's beginning to sag already. This problem will not get better. It will continue to get worse.
Okay. And once we put up drywall, we won't know why we have a sag there.
Correct.
We would just be guessing.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about what happens at the pre-drywall inspection, and then we'll have you go through some of the stuff. So how does it start when you get to pre-drywall?
So when it starts, we start looking at, I generally start on the 3rd floor or the highest floor, and I start in the ceilings. And as you can see, without drywall, you can see all kind of piping and plastic and wiring, everything moving to the wall. And so then we start looking and we're asking ourselves questions. Why in the world is that there? Is that damaged? Does that look right? And sometimes you stand there and look at somebody and go, that doesn't look right. And the more you look at it, the more you start figuring out why it doesn't look, but your initial response is something doesn't look right here. And so there's an awful lot of questions, and it takes some technical ability, and it takes some patience, and it takes some time to systematically work through each room and take a look at all these issues.
All right. So structure, I assume, is probably one of the bigger areas where we find issues in pre-drywall. What are we looking for and what do we find? We're
looking for damage to installed materials. We're looking for improper materials or installation. Those are the 2 biggest ones. Then we're looking at the exterior structure. We're looking at air stopping at the exterior walls. And that's the foam that they put in at the different joints is sealed to keep air from flowing in and out of your walls. It helps your insulation, it helps you sealing the home. We're also looking for fire stopping, which is generally in the vertical penetrations, like we see plumbing pipes going through the home or something like that. We want to make sure that all those are sealed, because in a fire, anywhere there's an opening and air can move through, then fire can move through it. It inhibits the ability for fire to move quicker through your home.
Okay, so that's something you wouldn't see until you had a fire,
that's
right?
Correct.
So,
and then we're looking at your foundation and structural integrity from both the inside of the home and the exterior of the home. And we can see all these better because there's no drywall.
All right, so what's going on here?
All right, so this is going to be just a minor issue. So this is a structure issue. The anchor bolt is missing that would connect the bottom plate of the wood wall to the concrete foundation. And we say, what, big deal, it's 1 bolt. But it's really a problem because the code says that you have to have bolts put in a certain way, at a certain depth, at a certain difference, at a certain span. So then we ask, why is that important? Because if you're missing a lot of them, you have problems with shear, you have problems with uplift or sliding or overturning, and that can cause structural failure in your home. If the builder forgets to put any bolts in, that could be a major problem, especially if you're in South Carolina with a hurricane issue or something like that, but also in Georgia with high winds. So we want to make sure that everything the builder is supposed to do it's done correctly and appropriately.
I like to, my layperson's vision of code is we don't have a code rule about something till something went wrong because we didn't have the rule ahead of time.
Right.
So whenever there's a code issue, it's because somebody had a problem.
Right.
What's going on here?
This is a picture that I took a few weeks ago. And so here we can see that under every one of these trusses, there are joist hangers, which is appropriate, except with the one with the red circle. Somehow they just forgot to put a whole joist hanger. So that particular truss is just toenailed to the beam. It's not supported. So over time, that's going to begin to sag or fail. It's very easy to correct now. That would take one person with the right materials, probably 5 minutes to fix now, as opposed to a major issue down the road.
As opposed to the post drywall, tearing it out and trying
Correct.
to figure out where the issue is.
And this would probably not be visible after drywall goes up.
For a couple of years, maybe.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's move to electrical. Tell us what we're looking for here.
Again, it's damage to install materials and proper materials and installation to service entrance panels and distribution components. We're looking at the bonding and grounding connections to make sure that your outlets are safe and that they're grounded. They don't damage yourself or any of your things you're plugging in. The presence of lighting boxes at required places, stairways, kitchens, bathways, hallways, closets, basements, attics, crawl spaces. We're looking for those issues. Are they provided for the HVAC equipment, exterior doors, have lights and things, and the visible parts of all the branch circuits and feeder conductors and raceways. And the raceways are the conduits that the wires run through. We want to know if they're appropriate, if they're supported well, are they sagging, are they going to the right places, that kind of thing.
We had an issue one time where none of the electricity for the master bathroom was connected to anything. It's like it was all wired, but not to anything.
Right.
So that would have been another issue. So what did we find here?
So the issue here is that the code says that anytime that you have a wire within 1.25 inches to the front wall of the stud, then it could be impacted by when they nail in the sheetrock or screwing in the sheetrock. It can puncture that wire and cause damage. So we're tracing wires through the ceiling and through the walls and through the floor and seeing, are they close to the edge of the stud? If so, do they have nail plates? If not, should they have them? And so we actually put a tape measure if we're unsure. Sometimes it's very obvious, sometimes it's not. And then we double check to make sure who we're not sure with a tape measure that it might need a nail plate that doesn't have one.
Okay.
In this case, the electrical conduit protrudes outside the wall. So when they try to put the sheetrock up, it won't work. It should be inside the wall.
All right, this one, the builder's grateful because they don't have their sheetrock people there yet, right? When we find it.
And this one is a easy problem to happen because they've nailed the staple in too tight. They've damaged the sheathing. And so now the wiring is damaged and that should be replaced and repaired.
Okay, and that's like the electricity is now exposed to the house. So is that a safety issue?
It is a safety issue, potentially a fire issue. It's in the attic, so if there were insulation right up against it, it could be a fire issue as well.
Okay, I will send the slides out to everyone who signed up for the class. So we will we'll look at plumbing, and we'll just have Steve show us a couple of things that we found in the plumbing in the interest of time.
Yeah, this one was very strange. One of our inspectors found where a number of plumbing pipes, this is PEX, this is flexible PEX plumbing pipes, were actually nailed to a board and then nailed to the floor. There's no way they're putting sheetrock up on that, and they're all exposed. There's no way of knowing why that's there.
Okay.
We're also looking for the same issue for the plumbing pipes as for electrical. There has to be a nail plate to protect if it's within 1.25 inches. So we measure those as well.
And that's so we don't accidentally nail through
And puncture the pipe.
And puncture the pipe, and then we have a slow leak.
Correct.
Or fast one.
And this was in a crawl space. And in this case, when the plumber decided he would run his pipes, he just cut the joist right off. And you can see here, there's 4 or 5
right
joists that are
here.
just totally cut. And so now we have a weakness in the floor system of the home.
So later it's sagging.
Yes.
All right, roofing. What do we sometimes see in roofing?
In this case, we're looking up underneath. This is on what we call a soffit and a fascia. And you can see that the sheathing is damaged and there is no rafter that goes all the way out to the corner. So it's a weak spot. So you won't see that when it's finished and the siding is put on, and you won't see it from the top, but it'll be a weak spot that over time can have water intrusion, or somebody can be working up there and step through and get hurt or fall off the roof. So it should be repaired now.
All right. HVAC.
I love this particular picture. This is flex duct. Flex duct is designed to be flexible, but not twisted into a pretzel shape. And so the more you twist it and turn it, the less airflow there is. So it inhibits proper airflow to and from the rooms. And in this case, for whatever reason, they actually strapped it below the ceiling. So you can't even put sheetrock up here.
Okay, so they're going to fix this, but it's whether they fix it before the drywall people come or after, right? I swear something happened like this in my house because one of the rooms, we don't get very good airflow. So
Yes.
Those of you who have hot rooms in your house, that might have been it. What about interior on the inside?
We're looking for a number of things. These pictures are showing stair treads before they're finished, but you can see there's a 1/2 inch difference in height. So the code says that you have to have a set value of height. You can't exceed that value. And it also has to stay within a range, because as you're walking down the stairs, you get into a rhythm of going down the stairs. And then suddenly you find one that's too high or too low, you can step wrongly and fall and trip yourself.
Okay. Exterior?
All right, we look at the exterior flashing and windows, and this is house wrap. And in this case, the house wrap was not properly secured and it's blowing loose. And so it needs to be reconnected and done correctly to properly see your house before they put the siding on.
What does house wrap do?
House wrap basically is for an air barrier, providing wind and drafts from getting through your home.
Okay. All right. So in conclusion, the building a house is a really complex, I mean, you've done it.
It is. It's complex from different areas. One of them is you have multiple people from multiple companies doing multiple things, sometimes at the same time. And sometimes construction person A will move what construction person B has just done because it makes it easier for them. Even though construction person B may have done it right, now construction person A decided, hey, I'm just going to move this because it's easier for me, and now it's not right.
What about the municipal inspectors? What's the difference between them and us?
The municipal inspectors do a good job. They're also generally under a tremendous burden of time. They're overworked, and many of them have, I know a gentleman at church who's a municipal inspector. He has 15 to 20 per day to do. So he's moving quickly through these houses.
Okay.
So he's looking for the same things, but he doesn't have the same dedicated time that we are. We might be there 1 or 2 hours, but that's dedicated time specific to that home.
And then we go back and research those things as well. All right. So when we write the report, we identify the deficiency or the issue. And then what else is included in that report?
We have to identify it. We have to, again, using code and technical references, tell the builder why it's deficient, what the code says it should be done correctly, and then what the client should care, why is it not correct, and what the problem could be.
Okay. So if you have a buyer there, so if you have any questions, put them in the chat. But if you have a buyer that is lucky enough to be able to build the house and see it before the drywall is up, definitely recommend that they give us a call. You don't need to know all the things. We know all the things. So you can just know that there's important information that can be found in a pre-drywall inspection. And so you can recommend that they talk to a really smart inspector, which would be Home Probe. What's the best way to schedule an inspection? It is whatever way is best for you. So we've got info@home-probe.com. You can use either of our local phone numbers, or if you go to the website, there's a number that you can call. And you can call or you can text, and you can also go to home-probe.com and schedule your inspection. We will take really good care of you and your clients, and we'll make you look good, and we will make living in that house much better for your clients. So with that, I'm going to try and find our chat by stopping my sharing and seeing if there are any questions. I don't see anything right now. Once again, most of the questions come about in terms of price. The cost is about $600 to $900 for a pre-drywall inspection. The cost to not have one is, I'm sure, much more than that. As soon as you have one problem that comes up,
Could be thousands.
Later, can be definitely thousands when you're trying to diagnose the problem by removing drywall and then having it come back up. So thank you all for making real estate better. We will send you the slides and we'll send you the video, and go do some great real estate. Bye.